Alright, so today we're talking about a brand new camera from Arri, the Arri Alexa Mini LF. And hands down, if I had a magical credit card with no limit, I'd go straight and just buy this. And for those of you who haven't heard of an Arri Alexa camera, I basically call it Hollywood's favorite camera. For example, the last 3 movies I happened to see in theaters was Honey Boy, Joker, and Ford vs. Ferrari. All awesome movies, by the way. Highly recommend them, but all shot on Arri Alexas. But Alexas are basically a whole family of cameras. Let's start with Honey Boy. That was shot on an Alexa Mini, and that is relatively small. It's still kind of a big camera, but it's small relative to a full-size Alexa. I mean, this is without a lens or a battery. This thing gets massive. And the smaller footprint has been something that people like, so it shot Get Out, A Star Is Born, the latest Jumanji that I can't stop seeing ads for. So it's been a popular camera. Now Ford vs. Ferrari used Alexa LFs. LF stands for large format, so they have a larger sensor. It's actually 2 of the standard sensors kind of put vertically and put next to each other, so you get that big sensor. Now that is an amazing, super powerful camera, but it's also very heavy. And then there's Joker that's shot on the Alexa 65, which not only has 2 sensors, but 3 sensors next to each other. And that thing is a beast. I think there's only about 70-ish of them in existence, and they're literally just hopping between the biggest movies to the biggest movies. Avengers, Endgame, The Revenant, Bohemian Rhapsody, I mean, the list goes on. Basically, just, it's too much camera for me. So now we have the Alexa Mini LF, which takes the large format sensor from the LF and puts it into a body that's basically the size of a Mini. So we're starting to see cameras that have more power at a smaller size. Yes, please. But they're still so new and hard to come by. You can probably imagine my excitement when they reached out and asked if I wanted to come and hang out in their creative space for a couple days. Yeah, I mean, that is straight up Christmas for me. I mean, I don't need to hear another Christmas jingle. Okay, I don't need to hang socks over a fireplace. Now that we're talking, is that a fire hazard? Definitely not trying to sit on Santa's lap, right? I'm chill, I'm a simple guy. Just let me play with Arri cameras and I could die a happy man. So let me start off by showing you a few clips that I shot with the Alexa Mini LF, and we'll come back and talk about the camera. Now that footage came out looking awesome, right? Now, one of my favorite things about the Arri Alexa is that it has an insane amount of dynamic range and what I consider to be usable dynamic range. Here, let me show you what I mean. So check this out. We have Justin sitting here all by himself in a really dark place, all lonely and sad. And then we have a gate open over there, so that's letting in a lot of that super bright sunlight. So we kind of have all kinds of exposures here. Bright, dark, and then bright again. Now here's the shot from the Alexa exposed to Justin's face. We have some direct sun coming into the background, which is obviously overexposed, but if we want to recover some of that, that latitude is there. Now this is my vlog camera, and it's not really an apples to apples test, different lenses and settings and all that, but at least it'll help demonstrate what I'm talking about. Everything outside is completely blown out, which is pretty expected. I mean, we're talking about direct sunlight here. Now it's overexposed by 1 stop, so now we're doubling the amount of light that comes in, and it looks a little bit hot on here. Not terrible. On the Arri, it looks perfectly fine still. It barely even looks overexposed, but now let's go 2 stops in. And this is where you realize, you kind of messed up. Notice how skin tones really start to suffer when they start to get blown out. And then let's go 3 stops over. Now, let me know if this sounds familiar. You blew out your shot and you're trying to recover some of the highlights on skin tones, and it looks terrible. Oh no. Very, very unpleasant when you blow out skin tones like that, and gets even worse as you try to correct it. But let's see how the Arri does. Let's dip that back down. Looks amazing. Let's go 4 stops over on the Arri. I mean, 4 stops over is pretty bad. Like, you're supposed to be shooting at an f-stop of 11. You accidentally shoot at an f2.8. I mean, that's how much you have to mess up to get 4 stops over exposure. But with a little bit of correction, look at that. Whoa. Okay, that looks great. I mean, honestly, look at this shot that's 4 stops overexposed corrected. Then compare that to the properly exposed shot from the vlog camera. I mean, I think this looks better. It's almost like you don't even need to know what the you're doing anymore, still get a pretty good shot. And that's something to take note of when we're looking at some of this fire footage. I mean, fire is obviously very bright, but notice it looks very clean, pleasant, and organic opposed to any sort of harsh clipping. And if you've ever tried to film anything fire before, you know how difficult it is to expose the fire and your subject evenly. And get this, this is my favorite part of that whole fire sequence you saw. That is with 0 color grading. It's straight out of camera with the Rec 709 conversion on it, so it looks nice and colorful, and that is what you are looking at. I mean, gosh, this is some of the best looking footage I've ever shot, and I didn't even color grade it. Of course, if we want to color grade it, we can peel back that 709 LUT, and you can see how much detail there is in the highlight of the fires and detail in the dark hair. Nothing is really clipping in the shot in either direction, so that is amazing. Now, there is the whole argument of, oh, it's not about the camera, it's how you use it, which I very much agree with it. You know, as long as you learn how to control environments and shoot in certain ways, like, you can do a lot with very little. But let me know if this sounds familiar. You go out shooting, you realize, oh, the lighting's not really where I want it. Let's just wait a couple hours for the sun to set a little bit, then we can get the shot I want. That's a great game plan. I do that all the time. Take a couple hour break in the middle of the day. But the bigger your film set gets, the harder that becomes to do. When you have 100 people working on your set, you can't just be like, let's just come back in like 4 hours. Everyone just chill. But I mean, that's just one example, right? I mean, I always find myself walking away from shoots going like, man, if I could have only done that one more thing, if I could have set up that 12 by silk or that ultra bounce or the M18 out the window, you know, there's always these little things that's like, could have made the shot a little bit better. In some situations, you can't even put up stands because you'll see it in the shot, especially if it's a very wide angle or if it's a long one taker like Birdman. He's going from room to room, switching different lighting situations, and they shot that on the Arri Alexa as well. So you usually don't get to set up everything perfect, you know? So the Arri Alexa kind of gives you that leeway where even if the lighting isn't perfect, it still looks great. I mean, come on, this shot is 4 stops overexposed and corrected. This is nuts. Just imagine how good my vlogs would look if I shot it on an Arri Alexa. People say you can't vlog on an Arri Alexa. Psh, not with that attitude. Oh, this is heavier than I thought. Here we go. Ugh, see? Today we're gonna go to Disneyland. Let's go. Say hi to the squad. They're gonna be doing some yoga for us. I've been told not to call you yoga people because that's what I kept saying. And he was like, no, call them yogis or else they're gonna be pissed. How's the footage look though? Does it look pretty good?
It's amazing. Fantastic. Even in the shitty lighting.
Oh my God, look at the highlight roll off. You look so good right now.
You actually look great on here.
Look at this, yeah.
Yeah, look at this.
Well, I'm turning red though. Yeah. It's not because of the camera, it's because like my arm is about to fall off. Okay, so maybe not the most convenient vlog camera in the world, but when used as a cinema camera, it looks so good. It's interesting, right? Because like in photography, full frame sensors have been around for a while. I feel like majority of photographers prefer it, but APS-C sensors are also very popular. In the cinematography world, it's been kind of the opposite because it's been Super 35 for the longest time, which is again somewhat close to APS-C, just a little bit bigger. But now the trend seems to be going towards large format or full frame size sensors in cinema cameras. Now for YouTube, my primary camera is a full frame mirrorless camera, and I shoot a lot of video on this. So when I started shooting on the Alexa LF, it felt very familiar. But for those of you who are coming from a Super 35 sensor, you're gonna notice everything just getting poof wider. Roughly, your focal length will be about 2/3 of what it would be on a Super 35. All right, so today we got the Arri Alexa Mini LF, and we are gonna shoot that. Okay, I didn't see this underneath you, and I was like, wait a second. This doesn't make sense.
Like I'm floating.
I swear I did not see that, and I was like,
I'm stretching my back.
she's a demon. We just shot that on the 47mm, but again, we are shooting large format, so it felt a lot wider. It felt almost like a 35 or even a little bit wider than that even. But you still get that 50mm look just at a wider angle. So shots like this, it's a wide shot, but you're still getting separation from the background to the foreground.
You look like a superhero with the weirdest superpower. I'm Scorpion Boy.
It looks really heavy though, right? But actually these lenses, these signature primes are made out of magnesium, so they're actually just as strong but really lightweight. Let's try a tight lens, that might be kind of cool. How much does an Arri signature prime 150mm cost? This one here is $32,400. Yeah, for $32,000 you could get one focal length, 150mm. Now this is a perfect example of the large format look. Just look at the background and how soft everything gets, and also the way the focus rolls off so gently. Now this is really thanks to those large format signature prime lenses that are nice and fast, but also really that large format sensor to really get this look. And then on the other hand, if we throw on the 18mm, which is super wide on this LF sensor, but the signature prime is good at giving us very little distortion even at these super wide angles. I quit. I can't. What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to compete with this? Well, I'm done. I'm gonna do acro yoga.
Put your hands in front of you. Yep, lean forward. Yep, lean forward, lean
Oh
forward.
my God, whoa!
Push
Whoa.
your chest up. Push into my hands. Lift your chest up. Yeah. There you
What?
Go.
Look! Oh look, I'm flying! I felt like I was in the Matrix. Whoa.
Good job.
Wow.
Dude, you're just melting too. You're like, all right.
I was like, okay, I'm just gonna trust you.
Dude,
Wow,
good choice.
you are the
good
man.
Choice.
Whoa. I didn't even have to do any balancing. You just know exactly like, there's the center of gravity and just put your foot there, twirl
that's
me
it,
around.
dude.
That was nuts.
There's the science. You crushed it.
You did yoga.
I did yoga. I'm actually a yoga expert. Now, Arri was very clear that large format doesn't necessarily mean better than Super 35. It's more of an artistic decision, and not everyone wants super shallow depth of field. But what's awesome about that LF is that you don't have to use the full large sensor. You can just crop into that Super 35mm area of that sensor. You're gonna lose some resolution there, but you can still use your favorite cinema lenses even if they don't have full frame coverage. I was using signature prime lenses, which cover that full large format sensor without a problem, so I was shooting at full 4.5K, but you can also crop in part of the way, not large format, not Super 35, right there in the middle, and that will give you a 4K or Ultra HD readout. So if you need to deliver 4K to someone like Netflix, you can do that without going all the way out to large format. Now the signature primes that we were using, I mean, that's gonna require its own video because there's a lot to talk about there, but they used a brand new LPL mount that Arri just developed. They developed the PL mount long time ago during the film days, but the LPL is the newer one, shorter flange distance and better optimized for digital sensors. Now with the LPL mount, they have a PL adapter, which literally just goes into the LPL mount. You lock that in and now you have a PL mount. I did also ask if they are coming out with an EF mount for the mini LF, and they are, which you'll be able to just replace very easily with a couple screws. So if you have a huge EF mount collection, don't worry, they've got you covered. And we already talked about dynamic range. Now let's talk about colors, which is something that Arri does an incredible job at reproducing very naturally and organically. Now, Arri's roots started all the way back in the day, over 100 years ago in the film days, and they've kind of came from the film world opposed to the digital camera world. So when they first made the Arri Alexa a digital camera, they didn't want it to look like a digital camera. They wanted it to look like a film camera. And one of the things that they told me that I found pretty interesting was that in video, as an image gets brighter, it gets more saturation and more colorful, opposed to film, which is actually kind of backwards. The brighter it gets, you actually lose saturation and gets more desaturated. And when they told me that, I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense, because in a lot of video cameras, I find myself personally overexposing a little bit just to get the colors to look like as saturated and as clean as I want them. But on the Arri Alexa, even if I underexpose it, it looks really nice and rich. And you know how we were talking about dynamic range earlier, where yeah, all the cameras look pretty good when it's properly exposed, but even when you go to the edges of the dynamic range, the Arri Alexa, it's very usable still. The Arri does does that in dynamic range, but also colors. Like even if you take an intense color light and put it on skin tones, a lot of cameras that can start to look very blotchy, you lose a lot of the texture, you lose that depth and dimension. But to test this out on the Alexa LF, luckily they gave me access to the Arri lights as well.
Can you try like a peacock blue or?
One of the coolest things about having a sky panel is that it's full RGB. So when you end up with a white wall, which is really boring, right? Throw a sky panel at it and essentially you have a bunch of different colored backdrops. Look at that. Come on, red, done. Purple, blue. As long as you have a controlled environment that you can get really dark, you can essentially get the background of any color. And on camera, it looks like a blue backdrop right now. So we got an Arri sky panel right now, and it's got a flame effect, so you can actually see that it kind of dims a little bit, and we are gonna have some fire, so it's gonna kind of match in with that. This is gonna just feel like there's more flames in the atmosphere, right? We got another one up here, greenish, bluish thing to just kind of add a little bit of something to the background so it just doesn't completely dip to black. And this is pretty sweet over here. This is the orbiter. Super excited to be one of the first ones to be able to play with this orbiter. There's only 4 in the world right now. They said if I touch it, they'll chop my hands off, so, but look at it. Part of what makes this light really special is that it's very modular. It's almost like one of the last lights you'll ever need, but you can switch out the heads. Right now we got a 30-degree open face reflector on there, but you can switch that out. You get like a soft box and other things coming. One of the things I think is really cool is it's got a sensor on the top, so you could have it continuously adjust to the environment's lighting. So maybe if you have it outside and it gets cloudy at a certain point, it'll adjust to that color. As golden hour is coming through, it'll kind of adjust to that lighting.
It's like when you're on set and no one wants to use a Mini, because normally people are freaking out. They're like, what, Alexa Mini?
No, this is the only place where like people are like, oh, it's the Mini. I don't even know if you turned it on. They're just like, oh, it's here.
They're like, the Mini?
Yep, we got a little bit spoiled being there for a couple of days, just access to all the cameras I can dream of. But clearly Arri does a few things very well. Colors, depth, dynamic range. How do they make this happen? We're gonna get a little bit nerdy here, but don't worry, I won't go too crazy on you. Now, Arri has a very unique approach on building cameras. Most people want the most impressive spec sheet, but Arri has always been focused on what our human eyes can perceive. Here's an example, resolution. Remember when HD came out, we were all like, whoa, this is so much sharper. It was very impressive and it was very conceivable because our eyes can recognize, whoa, that's sharper. But at a certain extent, our eyes can no longer see more and more resolution. For example, this table right here, this is fake wood. It's a piece of paper. I can see very closely at it and see that there's pixels. This is just printed, but you guys can't really tell because of the distance the camera is at and all that. So to you guys, it doesn't really matter that this is like a fake table. See, check it out. I just ruined this. See, I can look at this and this is all pixelated, but you guys can't. At this point, what matters more than the number of pixels on this piece of paper is the contrast and color. That is something that you can clearly see. Now, colors and contrast is something that our eyes are insanely sensitive to, so that really is what Arri focuses on. I mean, come on, you're probably watching this on 720p or something. You can still see that the quality out of the Arri Alexa footage is incredible, right? You're not seeing the 4K at all. What you are noticing is the accuracy in colors and contrast. So to capture all that, it all starts from the lens, right? So that's gotta be its own video, lens video coming eventually. From there, it hits a bunch of photo sites, which eventually get turned into pixels, but Arri makes their photo sites very, very big. You probably noticed that over the last couple of years, camera phones have been getting really good. A big part of that is because their sensors have bigger photo sites now. They're getting so big to the point where maybe 1 to 2 microns now. I mean, that's pretty impressive, right? But the Alexa Mini LF's photo sites are over 8 microns in size. As far as I know, that's like the biggest. Most cinema cameras are 4, 5, maybe 6, but you know, Alexa 8.25. So now you have that light hitting those big photo sites. You have to now convert it to a digital signal. Most of the time that conversion just happens right there on the sensor, but Arri wanted that sensor to be as clutter-free as possible so that it can just focus on absorbing light, that they disconnected that processor and put it on a different part of the camera.
He's the one that teaches me all this, by the way.
Like I don't know any of this stuff until he tells me, and then I re-say what he says to make me sound really smart. Also, things can get a little squirrely when you have a temperature shift on the sensor. So they have this, I think they said it was a rare earth element that they put up against it, or something. Don't quote me on this, but they run electricity through it in one direction, it warms up the sensor. They run it through the other direction and it cools off the sensor. Something like that. So they have very, very good control over their sensor's temperature. So that's probably why they have a very wide operating temperature. I mean, they build these cameras to go to the coldest places on Earth and the hottest places on Earth and film. This probably sounds like a sponsored video. It's not sponsored at all. I'm just a really big fan. I've been a big fan of their cameras forever, so I'm just super stoked to be working with them. But anyways, now that these photo sites are capturing so much information from the light, it actually gets split up into 2 different processors so that it can achieve 16-bit color. It takes that 16-bit color and repackages it into whatever format that you're deciding to record in. Think about that. That's crazy because right now I'm shooting in 8-bit right now, which works for this kind of environment. With an external recorder, I can get 10-bit, which would be nice. 12-bit you can find in some professional cameras, and 14-bit, like 16. Now 16 bits are just like, what? That's overkill, right? But it's interesting because 16-bit is around what our human eyes can see and conceive. So again, we're focusing on stuff that we can actually recognize opposed to getting a crazy amount of pixels. Oh my god, I'm out of breath. How long is this video? Holy crap. I better wrap this up. It's been over 20 minutes. I'm surprised you guys are still here. A huge shout out to Arri for having me there, and also Mika and Julio for coming out and showing us some acro yoga. I must say that was quite the experience, and also Cassie and Lori for coming out as well. You could go show them all some love on Instagram, and let's wrap this up by reading a few comments. Damn, such a romantic spot, and Jean is talking about drones. Yeah, Carrie's very understanding. I think she's gotten used to it by now. I have to keep yelling cancel at my Echo throughout this video. Yeah, anytime I make an Alexa video, Alexa, 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 nah, I just pissed off a bunch of people. Little Philip says, I'm sure I'll start a fire here, but Arri, not Arri. That is a huge debate, Arri or Arri. And I asked Arri themselves and they said, yeah, since you're an American, just say Arri. Jonathan Gilbert says, who needs a house when you got this? If you missed out on the episode where I bought this camera, basically Carrie wants to buy a house. I obviously want to buy cameras, so we met in the middle and we bought a camera. Matthew says, I think Carrie's fine with getting the camera instead of the house. At least the camera won't float away.